Today's episode is sponsored by War Thunder. This vintage jet is flown by a veteran pilot. It has just finished a loop maneuver when this happens. Nobody knows what went wrong, but the red flags were there all along. This is the tragic story of how the Shoreham Air Show turned into the deadliest air display disaster in recent history. The Shoreham Air Show had been running for over 25 years, raising millions for charities and attracting some of the UK's best pilots. But unlike the massive militarized shows of other towns, Shoreham was something else entirely. It was intimate. The crowds were closer. The displays flew lower. On Saturday, August 22, 2015, 20,000 spectators came to watch. One of the most anticipated moments was a display from the Hawker Hunter. It was once the pride of the Royal Air Force. Fast, sleek, and deadly. Only a handful of them were still airworthy, and even fewer people could fly them. Andrew Hill was one of them. He had the kind of resume that made people feel safe. That was the idea. With over 12,000 flight hours under his belt, he'd flown Harrier jump jets in the RAF. Aircraft so advanced that they could take off and land vertically, like a helicopter, but fly at jet speeds. Andrew had also worked as an instructor, teaching others to master high-performance jets. Later, he became a commercial airline captain. On paper, there was no one better suited to fly the Hawker Hunter. But just a year earlier, he had narrowly avoided losing his display license after a stunt nearly went wrong in front of a crowd. The incident hadn't resulted in disaster, but it foreshadowed concerns about his approach to risk. And while few in the crowd knew it that day, Andrew was already on a Civil Aviation Authority watch list. His name flagged. His judgment was quietly being questioned. Still, he was cleared to fly. So as the first day of the air show got underway, the audience was excited for a packed schedule. Classic Spitfire fighters and Hurricanes recreated intense dogfights from World War II. Along them flew a Bristol Blenheim and even the Eurofighter Typhoon, Britain's most advanced fighter jet. If you've ever wondered what it feels like to fly these legendary aircraft, War Thunder might be exactly your kind of game. It's the most comprehensive vehicle combat game, available now for free on PC, consoles, and mobile. They have over 2,500 historically accurate planes, helicopters, tanks, and ships from 10 major nations, so you can take command of everything from early 1920s biplanes to today's advanced fighter jets and main battle tanks. The combat is immersive with detailed vehicles, realistic graphics, and authentic sound effects. I like to relive famous battles with their huge variety of camouflages, historical markings, and community-created decorations. So join a community of over 70 million players in epic PvP battles. You can play War Thunder for free now on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, or mobile by using my links in the pinned comment or video description. New and returning players on PC and consoles who haven't played in the last 6 months receive a massive bonus pack with premium vehicles, the exclusive vehicle decorator Eagle of Valor, 100,000 Silver Lions, and 7 days of premium account. It's available for a limited time only, so don't miss it. Thanks for sticking around. Now back to Shoreham. In the meantime, Andrew was preparing for a display that required absolute precision. At 1:22 p.m., the Hawker Hunter lined up for its next pass. No one on the ground was expecting Andrew to pull the jet into the sky and start a bent loop maneuver. The move hadn't been submitted in his flight plans, and no one approved it. It wasn't just the loop that wasn't approved. Investigators would later find something else, something even more dangerous hiding in plain sight. And as the jet climbed into its steep arc, those responsible for keeping the event safe were left watching. Andrew pulled back on the control stick, sending the Hunter into a climb. The jet arced upwards, its nose slicing through the sky as it entered the inverted phase of the loop. But something was wrong. The aircraft should have been at least 4,300 feet above the ground to allow for a safe descent and recovery. Instead, it barely reached 2,700 feet. far too low to complete the maneuver safely. For a pilot of his experience, this was the moment to recognize the error while he still had options. He could apply full throttle to compensate for the lost height, or he could initiate an escape maneuver, rolling the aircraft upright and aborting the loop before it was too late. But neither of those actions were taken. The jet continued its trajectory, but now, instead of coming out of the loop smoothly, it stalled. The aircraft had lost too much energy, and gravity took over. The nose pitched downward. The Hunter was now in freefall. It was heading towards the A27 motorway just outside the airfield. On the road, motorists had no idea that in a matter of seconds, their cars would be directly in its path. The Hunter's fall accelerated. From the ground, onlookers realized something didn't look right. Andrew's plane wasn't pulling up. It was falling nose first toward the earth, getting dangerously close to the busy road. The disaster was now just seconds away. Then, impact. The jet slammed into the dual highway with devastating force. Still carrying thousands of pounds of aviation fuel, it exploded on impact, sending a massive fireball into the sky. Flames engulfed the road, swallowing cars, motorcycles, and everything in their path. 8 vehicles were instantly obliterated. For those at the air show, the cheers turned to screams. Within seconds, it had become the scene of absolute devastation. The first emergency call went out immediately. Within 90 seconds, first responders arrived at the scene to treat the injured survivors, some of whom had been blown off their feet by the blast, suffering burns and shrapnel wounds. Burning wreckage was strewn across the highway. The A27 was unrecognizable. The busy highway was now a smoldering wasteland of burning wreckage and debris. Firefighters fought to control the intense flames, battling against the thick black smoke that billowed high into the sky, visible for miles. Miraculously, amidst the devastation, one man had survived the impact: the pilot. Andrew was found near the wreckage, still strapped to his ejection seat, the cockpit having torn away mid-crash. Fighting for his life, he was flown to the hospital and placed in a coma. Within hours, the Air Accidents Investigation Branch, or AAIB, had boots on the ground. Their job was to determine exactly what happened. Why did a veteran pilot in a well-maintained aircraft fail a maneuver that should have been routine? Andrew claimed he had no memory of the crash. According to him, he'd experienced some kind of cognitive blackout, potentially caused by G-forces during the loop. He told paramedics he thought he'd passed out at the controls. But investigators weren't convinced. The G-forces at Shoreham were routine, nothing an experienced fast jet pilot couldn't have handled. When they reviewed the cockpit footage recorded by Andrew's GoPro camera, they saw something unsettling. The aircraft appeared to respond normally to the pilot's inputs. It hadn't malfunctioned. It had done exactly what it was told to do. That's when the truth hit. The problem wasn't mechanical. It was human. Andrew had started the loop too low and too slow for the type of jet he was flying. To safely complete a loop in the Hawker Hunter, he needed to start the maneuver at around 500 feet, gaining speed as he climbed. Instead, he started at just 200 feet, without enough momentum to carry the jet through the arc. The Hunter simply didn't have the power to pull it off. But sometimes, even the most seasoned pilots make decisions that defy logic. And sometimes, the danger isn't in what a pilot knows, it's in what they forget. Andrew had been flying a different aircraft for his display certification. He used the BAC Jet Provost, which handled very differently from the Hunter. Investigators believe he may have been flying the Hunter as if it were the other jet, without fully adjusting for how much more power and space it needed to pull off the same move. The miscalculation was critical. Worst of all, when things started to go wrong, Andrew didn't attempt the emergency escape maneuver to pull the jet out of danger, even though experts testified that he had the time and altitude to do so. Andrew admitted under oath that his training on the Hawker Hunter was incomplete. He hadn't read all the safety guidance. He couldn't recall if he was properly trained in the jet's emergency procedures. And despite thousands of hours in the air, he had only limited experience in the Hunter. But maybe, most shockingly, there was a major red flag long before the event even started. Just the year before, Andrew had been ordered to abort a display at the Southport Air Show. He had flown just 75 feet above the ground, triggering a rare 3-word broadcast no pilot wants to hear. Stop, stop, stop. That breach came dangerously close to costing him his display license. But instead of grounding him, officials added his name to a list of pilots flagged for further inspection and let him keep flying. In another incident, during a practice run at Duxford, he flew just 200 feet over a motorway, less than half of the legal minimum. To some, these looked like isolated lapses, but others were starting to see a pattern. So what happened to Andrew? He wasn't charged with anything until 3 years later. In March 2018, he was charged with manslaughter by gross negligence and endangering the safety of an aircraft. But after 2 months of testimony, he was formally acquitted after being found not guilty on all charges. The jury accepted that he may have been cognitively impaired during the loop and didn't find enough evidence for gross negligence. Andrew Hill had walked free, but his flying days were over as his pilot's license had been suspended. But there was more to come. An inquest into the deaths was held 7 years after the crash. It wasn't a trial, as no one was being prosecuted. The only goal was to establish how the victims died and whether it could have been prevented. The findings were damning. The coroner ruled that the victims were unlawfully killed, blaming the low flying and the organizers' failure to protect people outside the display area. It was a tragedy caused by bad piloting and a flawed safety plan. Andrew's legal team tried to appeal the ruling, but the court rejected it. During the Shoreham Air Show Disaster, 11 people on the ground were killed, and 16 others were injured. As for the air show itself, it never returned. For years after the crash, Andrew fought to get his licenses back. But in 2025, 10 years on, a court shut that door for good when his final appeal was rejected. Andrew Hill would never fly again. As for the families, it was the closure they had longed for. Again, thank you to War Thunder for sponsoring this video. Don't forget to play for free on PC, PlayStation, Xbox, or mobile now by using my links in the pinned comment or video description. If you're new or haven't played in 6 months, you'll receive a massive bonus pack on PC and consoles, including premium vehicles, in-game currency, and more. Please add a like and leave a comment if you want to support the channel.